Okay, Mother. Yeah, you. The supernatural bad bitch who unmasked a whole worldwide coven and still showed up with her head high and her soul louder than the noise. Sit with that for a second. Feel it. Because we're gonna talk about you like you're the main event. Because you are. You know what most people do when they realize the world is rigged against them? They fold. They shut their mouth. They play nice. They pretend they didn't notice the masks, the manipulation, the little rituals everyone performs to keep the lie alive. They see the coven and go, oh, that's just how it is. But you saw the coven, the fake friends, the corrupt systems, the guilt-tripping family, the abusive partners, the spiritual scammers, the office politics, the whole damn circus. And instead of bowing, you ripped the mask off. You didn't just survive the madness. You walked into the room where it was being organized, and that's what really scares them. Let's be honest for a second. They never expected you to wake up. Your whole life, they trained you to shrink, to apologize, to doubt yourself. They gave you scripts. Be grateful it's not worse. That's just how they are. You're too sensitive. Don't make a scene. They were hoping you'd gaslight yourself for them. Free labor, free compliance, free silence. But somewhere between the betrayal, the late night crying, the what the hell is wrong with me spirals, something snapped. Not your spirit, your illusion. You started seeing it, didn't you? The way they all move in sync, the way the narcissist plays victim, the way the liar cries first, the way the abuser posts inspirational quotes, the way the spiritual ones talk about love while feeding off your insecurity. A coven, not of witches and wands, but of people who need you small so they can feel big. The mask cracked when you realized this one thing, greater than, wait, I'm not crazy. They just benefit from me thinking I am. And once that thought landed, it was over, not for you, for them. Let's talk about that moment. That moment you stopped asking, why don't they love me right? And started asking, why am I trying to earn love from people who are threatened by me? That's the unmasking. You started replaying conversations, little comments, side-eye looks, jokes that weren't jokes, backhanded compliments. All the times they told you to relax when you were the only one noticing the fire. You realized the smear campaigns were a reaction to your truth. The silent treatment was a control tactic, not punishment you deserved. The chaos wasn't random. It was manufactured to keep you confused. The coven didn't gather by accident. It formed around your light like moths around a flame they secretly resent. And then you did something they did not plan for. You stopped playing along. You didn't just unmask the coven, you unmasked yourself. You stopped being the chill version of you, the watered-down version, the agreeable, digestible, non-threatening version. You started saying, no, that doesn't work for me. I'm not available for that kind of energy. If you're going to talk about me, you can do it without access to me. You started setting boundaries, not the cute Pinterest kind, the you don't get to sit at my table anymore kind. And suddenly, the coven showed you exactly who they really were. They called you cold, selfish, crazy, too much, dramatic, ungrateful. Because how dare you stop bleeding for people who brought the knife? Here's the thing they'll never admit. You were not just the target. You were the prize, your empathy, your creativity, your attention, your energy, your loyalty, your ability to see the best in people even when they were actively showing you their worst. You were the power source. And deep down, you always knew it, didn't you? You just hoped that if you poured enough love into broken people, Eventually, someone would stand up and go, "Damn, I see what you've done for me. Let me show up for you now." But instead, what they said was, more patience, more understanding, more forgiveness, more excuses, more chances. Until you finally realized, this is not a relationship, this is a feeding ritual. That realization is not soft, it's not pretty, it shatters you. Because you look back and see every time you overextended, every time you defended them to yourself, every time you gave them access to the most vulnerable parts of you. And you realize they were tracking your weaknesses like data. And yeah, that hurts. It's supposed to hurt. That's the cost of waking up. But look at you now. You didn't just unmask them and collapse. You unmasked them and evolved. You took the hit. You took the heartbreak. You took that "I wasted years on these people" rage. And instead of letting it destroy you, you used it like rocket fuel. That's supernatural bad bitch energy. You want to know what makes you supernatural? It's not crystals or tarot cards or aesthetic darkness. It's the way you alchemize pain. Most people get hurt and turn bitter. They become the thing that broke them. They join the coven. They start playing the same ugly games to avoid ever feeling small again. But you said, "No, this ends with me." You took your trauma and turned it into discernment. You took your overthinking and turned it into pattern recognition. You took your sensitivity and turned it into a superpower. The ability to read a room, feel the energy shift, and clock the lie before it finishes forming. You turned survival mode into strategy. You are not too much. You're just too awake for people who want the lights off. Let's talk about power, since no one ever explained it right. They told you power was being the loudest in the room, having the most followers, getting the last word, being feared. That's not power. That's insecurity dressed up in cheap costume jewelry. Real power is knowing. You can walk away. You don't need their approval. You're not dependent on their narrative. Your worth is untouchable, even if everyone in the room agrees to pretend otherwise. Power is when they all tell a story about you, and you no longer feel the urge to run in and correct it, because you know who you are, and the people who actually matter will feel it. You unmasked a worldwide coven, but here's the punchline. The biggest mask you ripped off was your own. You stopped pretending you were okay being small. You stopped pretending you didn't want more. You stopped pretending you were fine with crumbs. You stopped pretending you were hard to love. You saw it clearly, greater than "I am not hard to love. I am just hard to exploit." And that's when the whole structure started to shake. Because a person who is no longer available for exploitation is a threat to any system built on it. Look at how far you've come, old you, over-explaining yourself in paragraphs to people committed to misunderstanding you. New you. You know what? Believe what you want. I'm busy. Old you, walking on eggshells around people who enjoyed dropping them. New you, barefoot on your own path, leaving their chaos behind. Old you, crying because they didn't choose you. New you, relieved because now you don't have to carry them. You switched roles. You stopped auditioning and remembered you own the damn stage. They're not rejecting you. They're losing access to you. You know what else is wild? They studied you. They copied your style, your phrases, your ideas. They stole your energy, your work, your vibe, then acted like you were the one reaching. Because deep down, they knew. If you ever woke up to what you really are, you would stop begging for a seat at their crooked table and build your own. And now you are. You're rewriting the script, blocking instead of chasing, resting instead of proving, saying no without sending a 3-paragraph essay, keeping your moves quiet until they're undeniable. You're not the nice, naive one anymore. You're the one who smiles, says less, and sees everything. Let's be clear, they didn't create you. You created them. In the sense that your light gave them a role to feed on. You were the prize character in their story, the one who gives, forgives, absorbs, tolerates, but you rewrote the casting. You walked out of the victim role and into the unbothered architect of your own life. And yeah, they're mad. Of course they are. Because now, their guilt trips don't land. Their silent treatments feel like peace and quiet. Their gossip just advertises that they lost you. Their "you've changed" actually means you stopped being easy to control. They're watching you reclaim your energy, and they can't stand it. Because you were never supposed to get this far. They wanted you exhausted, not enlightened, ashamed, not empowered, triggerable, not intentional. But let's talk about those triggers for a second. Those flashbacks, those emotional spikes, those overreactions you hate. They're just alarms your nervous system installed to warn you when something feels like that time when. You learn to listen to them without letting them drive. You stopped saying, "I'm overreacting," and started asking, "What is this reminding me of? Where have I seen this pattern before?" That's when your brain stopped being a torture chamber and became a monitoring system. Now you catch red flags faster. You sense weird energy sooner. You walk away quicker. Not because you're afraid of connection, because you finally know the difference between connection and consumption. You might not give yourself enough credit for this, so let me spell it out. You did something most people never do in their entire lives. You faced the fact that some of the people you loved most did not love you in a healthy way. You accepted that your family, your friend group, your community, the institutions you trusted might have been more invested in keeping their structure intact than in healing the harm they caused. You stared down that heartbreak, and you didn't look away. You grieved the life you thought you had, the parents you wished existed, the partner you imagined in your head, the friends you believed you had, the version of yourself that kept trying to earn their love. And then, slowly, painfully, you let it all burn. That's coven-level unmasking. That's spiritual warfare in real life, choosing truth over comfort. And now you're dangerous in the best possible way, because you don't go where your spirit shrinks. You're okay being the bad guy in someone else's story, if it means being the honest one in your own. You'd rather be alone than surrounded by people who clap when you're weak and get quiet when you're strong. You'd rather disappoint them than abandon yourself. You finally understand, self-respect will cost you people. But the right people are expensive anyway. You're no longer sacrificing your sanity just to keep the room calm. If the truth causes chaos, the truth isn't the problem. The lie was. Let's talk about your future for a second. Because you didn't go through all of this for nothing. You're building a life now where your no is a complete sentence. Your yes is sacred. Your circle is small, but the energy is clean. Your standards are high, not because you're picky, but because you've lived through the consequences of not having any. You're going to make money in ways that don't drain you. You're going to meet people who don't need you, broken to feel powerful. You're going to create things that only the healed version of you could create. And the coven you unmasked? They'll watch from the outside, confused, offended, gossiping. Let them. Their opinions are receipts, evidence of who they are, not a verdict on who you are. You're not perfect. You're not meant to be. You'll still have days where the old stories creep back in. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe I'm asking for too much. Maybe I should have stayed quiet. On those days, remember this. If you were really the problem, they wouldn't have needed to lie about you. If you were really too much, they wouldn't have taken so much and still wanted more. If you were really the villain, they wouldn't be working so hard to control the narrative. You're not the villain. You're the escape artist. You slipped out of their script altogether. And yeah, you're still healing. You're still rewiring your brain. You're still teaching your body that peace isn't boring. It's safe. You still flinch when you hear certain tones. You still overthink certain texts. You still scan the room for danger out of habit. But pay attention. Every month, every year, the volume on that survival mode gets a little quieter. You catch yourself laughing more. You catch yourself resting without guilt. You catch yourself not explaining why you're not available. You catch yourself actually liking your own company. That's the glow they can't fake. You didn't just unmask a worldwide coven. You unmasked a worldwide lie that you had to earn basic respect, that you had to shrink to be loved, that your intuition was dramatic, your boundaries selfish, your sensitivity weakness. Nah, your intuition is surveillance. Your boundaries are security. Your sensitivity is evidence you're still human in a world that profits from people going numb. You are not here to be easy to digest. You are here to be real. And real will always feel threatening to people built on pretend. So here you are, not the broken one, not the victim, not the easy target. You're the one who woke up in the middle of the ritual, looked around at all the masked faces, all the rehearsed lines, all the subtle manipulations, and said, I see what this is. I'm not playing anymore. You walked out. You took your light with you. You took your energy, your loyalty, your love, your potential, and you stopped letting it fund people who worship their own emptiness. Call it healing, call it awakening, call it becoming that supernatural bad bitch. Whatever you call it, just know this. You didn't lose them, you found you. And once you really see that, once it actually sinks into your bones that you didn't lose them, you found you. Something about the whole game just shifts, right? You stop walking into rooms like a defendant waiting on a verdict. You walk in like, all right, if my spirit doesn't fit here, that's information, not a personal failure. You feel the difference between chasing acceptance and reading the energy like a weather report. You notice how quiet it gets inside your head when you're not constantly asking, do they like me? And you start asking, do I even like this? That shift is brutal at first, because you realize how many situations you stayed in where the honest answer was no. No, you didn't like how they talked to you. No, you didn't like who you had to become around them. No, you didn't like the way your body tensed up before you even saw their name pop up on your phone. You kept going anyway, because being chosen felt like oxygen. But that was the spell, wasn't it? The coven taught you that proximity to them equals safety, familiarity equals love, approval equals survival. Then you woke up and clocked that proximity to them was actually proximity to your own self-betrayal. You started doing that thing most people are terrified to do. You audited your life. You went through your contacts, your group chats, your habits, your beliefs, your childhood scripts, and you started asking uncomfortable questions. Who actually feeds my soul, and who just feeds on it? Who gets louder when I shine, and who gets weirdly quiet? Who apologizes only when they're scared of losing me, not because they feel what they did? Where am I begging to be seen in places that are committed to misunderstanding me? That's not a cute little self-care trend. That's war strategy. Every boundary you set is another layer of protection over the version of you that almost died trying to be easy to love. And it's wild, because once you start enforcing those boundaries, the mask slip becomes a weekly event. People you've known for years suddenly transform right in front of you. You say, "Hey, I won't tolerate being talked to like that," and a whole demon pops out of somebody who claimed to love you. You watch them glitch. How dare you have a standard? How dare you not react like before? How dare you treat yourself like you matter when our whole dynamic was built on you not knowing that? They call you changed, like it's an insult, and you're standing there like, correct, that was the entire point. You're not obligated to stay the version of you that made other people comfortable. You're allowed to become the version of you that makes your old self proud and your old handlers nervous. And speaking of handlers, think about how many tiny ways they trained you. The guilt texts, the backhanded compliments, the jokes that hit a little too deep. The timing, reaching out exactly when you started moving on, when you started to glow again, when you started to believe you could actually live without their chaos. They had you in a loop, break down, patch yourself up just enough to function, go back into the same environment, repeat. You were on emotional payroll in a building that kept setting you on fire and then demanding gratitude for handing you a tiny glass of water. You stopped playing employee. You went rogue. You learned to sit in your own pain instead of running back to the very people who caused it. That's the rawest part. Those evenings where your chest felt hollow, your phone was quiet, nobody was coming through to rescue you, and every old pattern in your brain screamed, go back, go back. At least there, you're not alone. You stayed anyway. You sat on the floor, or on your bed, or in your car, and you cried like something inside you was dying. And something was. The version of you that needed their approval flatlined. In that emptiness, in that ache that felt like you were being abandoned by the whole world, you finally met the one person who never actually left you. You met you. Not the mask, not the people pleaser, not the fixer, not the strong one, not the healer, not the clown, not the quiet background character. You met the you who has opinions that piss people off. The you who wants more than survival. The you who has desires that don't fit the script you were handed. The you who was always labeled too much, when in reality you were simply too honest for people committed to pretending. And once you met that version, going back to the role they built for you started feeling like self-harm. That's when your standards shifted from, I hope they like me, to I hope they're even qualified to talk to me. That's when you stopped being impressed by bare minimum decency. He texts back is not a personality trait. They didn't yell this time is not growth. She checked in once is not emotional labor. You adjusted the bar, and everybody who enjoyed stepping over the old one in muddy shoes got exposed. Whole covens fell apart when you realized you're not desperate anymore. And the funniest part, your power didn't come from learning how to manipulate them back. It came from losing interest in manipulation altogether. You stopped needing to win. You started needing to be well. You began protecting your nervous system like it's sacred, because it is. You noticed what your body does around certain people. The tight jaw, the clenched stomach, the shallow breathing, that weird numbness. You stopped gaslighting those signals and started treating them like alarms. Someone talks to you with fake sweetness and covert disrespect. Your body tenses. Instead of telling yourself, I'm being dramatic, you recognize, my system has seen this pattern before and is warning me. That is supernatural right there. Intuition wired into flesh. You don't need tarot cards to read this energy. Your heart rate already read it. And every time you honor those signals, your body starts trusting you again. That's what's really happening under the surface. You're rebuilding trust with yourself. For years, your body screamed, "This feels wrong." And your mind replied, "Shut up, they're family. Shut up, they're my partner. Shut up, they're my friend. Shut up, they're respected. Shut up, don't make it weird." You taught yourself that your own warning system couldn't be trusted. Hey, you there, listening. Settle in for a second, because what I'm about to say, it hits where it hurts, where you live, where you've been bleeding quietly, pretending everything's fine, while the world piles more weight on your shoulders than anyone should have to carry. Look at me. You already know what's happening out there. They screwed up beyond repair. Not a little misstep, not a small slip-up. No. This was catastrophic, messy, a full-scale meltdown they thought they could sweep under the rug. And, the thing is, you've been holding the truth for a while, haven't you? That quiet little stack of evidence, that mental folder of, "Oh, really? You think I didn't see that?" Moments. And then, boom. The receipts dropped. Not politely, not quietly. They hit the streets like a grenade in a glass room. And suddenly everybody's heads snapped around, eyes wide, jaws on the floor, saying your favorite modern phrase, "Io, what?" People aren't just angry. They're out for blood, and not metaphorically. I mean the real primal, someone has to answer for this kind of rage. The crowd finally sees what you saw all along. The facade cracked, the mask fell, and the truth marched out naked in the sun with its hands up, saying, "Yeah, I did that. And you're standing in the center of that chaos, with this strange, electric feeling crawling up your spine. Because for the first time in a long time, the narrative isn't stacked against you. It's aligned with you. And that scares you a little. Because power, real power, always does. See, here's the part people don't tell you. You weren't just surviving while they plotted, lied, manipulated. You were studying. You were keeping tabs. You were cataloging every betrayal, every fake apology, every "oops, my bad" moment they shrugged off like it couldn't possibly matter. And now those same moments are burning them alive. You know what that makes you? Not petty, not vindictive, prepared. You didn't set the trap. They walked into it. You didn't expose them. They handed you the truth themselves. It just took a little time for the world to read it. And I mean, look. I'm not telling you to become some kind of villainous mastermind here, okay? I'm telling you something so many people refuse to understand. When the truth comes out, the person who held it the longest becomes the one everyone looks to for clarity. And that's you. It's always been you. But let me push deeper, right into that raw place you don't like to admit exists. You felt crazy for a while, didn't you? Gaslit, minimized, dismissed. They told you to let it go, move on, stop overreacting. Meanwhile, they were out there acting like consequences were optional, like life was a video game with unlimited respawns. Then the receipts dropped, and suddenly the same people who told you to calm down are now clutching their pearls, pacing in circles, whispering, "Did you hear? Did you see? How could they do that? Oh, how adorable, how late, You weren't crazy. You were ahead. And now the crowd is watching you, waiting, because, you're the only one who didn't flinch when the truth exploded. The only one who didn't scramble, panic, or try to rewrite the story. You're standing there like, yeah, I know, I've been knowing. See, that's the thing about people like you. You endure silently. You study quietly. You stay patient long enough for everyone else to hang themselves with the rope they thought they wrapped around you. And once the truth comes marching through the door, everyone turns to you and says, "What do we do now?" And here's where your real power kicks in. You don't need revenge. You are the consequence. Your existence, your refusal to break, your unwillingness to fold, already exposed them. Your resilience is the punishment. Your survival is the clapback. Your rise is the razor blade across the ego they tried to bury you under. Look, hear me clearly. You're not here to beg for justice. You're here because justice finally caught up with the liars, the manipulators, the pretenders, the smiling snakes who thought you'd stay quiet forever. You didn't have to hunt them. You didn't have to plot against them. You just had to wait. And waiting is something you mastered long ago. And now that the receipts are out, you're no longer the misunderstood one. You're the reference point, the one who called it, the one who stood firm, the one who didn't cave. You were the storm warning no one listened to. And now look, everyone's drenched, panicking, running for shelter, while you're standing in the rain like, I told you. I told all of you. Here's the twist they never saw coming. All that chaos, all that noise, all that bloodlust in the streets, none of it is about destroying them. It's about freeing you. Their downfall isn't your victory. Your clarity is. Their exposure isn't your celebration. Your awakening is. Because now you finally see yourself without their shadows cast over you, without their lies distorting your reflection, without their manipulation twisting your instincts. You're not reacting anymore. You're choosing. You're stepping into a version of yourself that's sharper, colder, wiser, one who doesn't get blindsided, guilt-tripped, or emotionally hijacked. The world may be out for their blood, but you're out for your rebirth. Not revenge, rebirth. The Joker kind. The kind where you don't rise politely. You rise with a grin, with a twitch in your voice, with that, yeah, I survived this, didn't I? Swagger that scares the ones who underestimated you. So, yeah, let them scramble. Let them panic. Let them drown in the truth they created. Because you're done shrinking. You're done explaining. You're done carrying blame that never belonged to you. This is your moment. The moment you stop apologizing for seeing what others refused to see. The moment you stop minimizing the instincts they tried to silence. The moment you finally feel that electric pulse of becoming the version of yourself they prayed you'd never meet. The world is out for blood, but you're out for yourself. Your voice, your power, your spine, your future. And you know what? It's about damn time. And you feel that shift happening inside you, right? That low hum in your chest. That, oh damn, this is real kind of awakening that doesn't ask for permission. It just rises. Quiet at first, then louder, until it's practically shaken your ribcage like it's been waiting years to finally scream. See, something changes in you the moment the world stops doubting your version of events. It's like your spine remembers it was built for pressure. Your mind remembers it was built for patterns. Your heart remembers it was built for war. And, you start walking different. Not cocky, not arrogant, just aware. Aware that the same people who laughed at you are replaying old conversations in their heads, realizing you weren't too emotional or overreacting. You were right, and they were scared of that. Scared of how sharply you see. Scared of what it means when someone like you refuses to swallow the narrative handed to them. You ever notice how fast people switch up when truth hits daylight? It's wild. One moment they're acting like you're dramatic, like you're imagining things, and the next they're whispering your name like you've always been the oracle they should have listened to. And, that does something to you. Not ego-wise, soul-wise. Because you realized you weren't fighting phantoms. You were fighting people who needed you to doubt yourself for their benefit. Every lie they told depended on your silence. Every manipulation depended on your confusion. Every betrayal depended on your hope. You kept giving chances because you believed improvement was possible. But they kept cashing those chances in like they were coupons for getting away with whatever they wanted. And then the receipts hit. And suddenly every moment they dismissed you becomes a loudspeaker, blasting their guilt across everyone's timelines, group chats, circles, reputations. It's poetic, messy, chaotic, but poetic. Look, you didn't ask to be the one holding the truth. You were forced into that role, forced into the position of observer, critic, survivor, all while trying to maintain some kind of dignity in the face of people who had none. And now, you're seeing yourself clearly for the first time, not as someone who endured, but as someone who outlasted. That's different. That's dangerous, in the best possible way. There's this thing happening internally, like your brain is rearranging the entire timeline of your life and saying, wait, if I was right about that, and that, and that, then maybe I've been powerful this whole damn time. That realization hits like a tidal wave, takes the wind right out of you, because you start replaying every moment you bit your tongue, every time you held yourself back, every apology you made just to keep the peace. And, something in you goes, never again, never again. You don't need to announce that out loud. Your energy says it for you. People feel that shift before you even speak. They sense the recalibration, the sharpening, the return of someone they never met but should have feared. This version of you, the one rising right now, it's built from the rubble of everything they tried to break. It's forged from receipts, from resilience, from red flags you stopped overlooking. Your silence used to be their shelter. Your clarity is their eviction notice, and you're standing there, processing all of this with that subtle little smirk creeping up, because you finally see the pattern. They didn't screw up at the end. They screwed up the moment they underestimated how deeply you notice things. That's the real twist. They thought you were soft. They thought you were naive. They thought you were someone they could spin like a story they'd already written. You weren't the character. You were the narrator. Every move they made, you recorded it. Every lie they told, you time-stamped it. Every contradiction, you archived it. And, the receipts were never just files. They were faith restorers. Proof that your intuition wasn't broken, just ignored. Proof that your instincts weren't dramatic. They were prophetic. People are out for blood because the truth finally aligned with your perspective. But you're not chasing destruction. You're stepping into recognition. You're stepping into the version of yourself that refuses to get gaslit into shrinking. There's a weight lifting off you that you didn't even realize you were carrying. a whole emotional backpack filled with doubt, second-guessing, confusion, shame, sliding right off your shoulders like it was waiting for this exact moment to let go. And somewhere inside you, there's this whisper forming, not loud yet, not confident yet, but steady, growing, persistent. It says, "You were never the problem. You were the mirror they couldn't stand to look into." And that whisper keeps getting louder. Louder than their excuses, louder than their lies, louder than the noise surrounding their downfall. There's an ignition in you right now, a spark that feels like it's been dormant, waiting for the exact crack in the world where it could finally catch fire. That spark is starting to spread, and you're not stopping it. And it's wild how fast that spark turns into something bigger, right? Like one moment you're just standing there, replaying old conversations in your head, and the next there's this heat in your chest that feels like recognition, like clarity, like finally remembering who the hell you are under all the noise people layered onto you. See, you're starting to notice things in yourself you used to downplay. Little shifts, tiny recalibrations. That instinct you brushed off, sharper. That voice you muted, louder. That intuition you second-guessed, unapologetic. And, it kind of hits you sideways that the version of you stepping forward right now isn't someone new. It's someone you've been suppressing for years, trying to make everyone else comfortable, trying not to make it a big deal, trying not to be dramatic, trying not to escalate. But the truth exploding like it did, it ripped the tape off your mouth. It ripped the brakes out of your system. It ripped the dimmer switch off your personality. People always talk about glow-ups like they're about looks. But the real glow-up is when your soul stops apologizing for seeing reality clearly. And I mean, look, it's strange watching people who once ignored you scramble to reinterpret your calm. Your silence hits different now. Your pauses feel loaded. Your presence feels heavier, like a verdict hovering in the air, even though you haven't said a word. You're not threatening anyone. You're just not shrinking anymore. And apparently that's terrifying. Funny how the same people who told you to move on are the ones revisiting every detail now, obsessing over every screenshot, every timestamp, every breadcrumb. And you're sitting there like, I warned you. I literally warned you. Not out of malice, out of foresight. You didn't want chaos. You just wanted truth. But they couldn't handle truth without combusting. There's a shift in how you walk into spaces now. Your shoulders sit different. Your eyes scan different. Your energy enters the room before you do, and people feel it. It's not revenge energy. It's recognition energy. The energy of someone who doesn't need to yell to be heard, doesn't need to prove to be believed, doesn't need to expose because exposure already happened. You're walking with this quiet, lethal kind of peace, the kind that comes from no longer arguing with reality, no longer bending backwards to protect people who shattered your trust, no longer swallowing words for the sake of maintaining a fake equilibrium that only benefited them. And here's the twist that settles in your stomach like a strange new confidence. You don't need closure from them. You don't need explanations. You don't need apologies. Everything you needed is already out there in plain view. The receipts did that work for you. Their actions exposed them. Your endurance revealed you. There's this moment. It probably hits you while you're zoning out or scrolling or just staring at the ceiling, when you realize you're not vibrating with anxiety anymore. That constant hum of What if I'm wrong? Evaporated. That fear of being misunderstood dissolved. That tension in your jaw unclenched. You're breathing deeper, clearer, like your lungs finally have room. You start hearing your own thoughts without distortion. You start trusting your own memory without hesitation. You start believing your own instincts without negotiation. It feels foreign at first. Then it feels addictive. Then it feels like your true baseline. And people notice. Oh, they notice. Your boundaries got firmer. Your tone got steadier. Your presence got heavier in the kind of way that makes people rethink their entire approach before they even speak to you. There's a magnetism building around you, raw, unfiltered, unnerving to anyone who benefited from your doubt. They can feel you stepping into something they never wanted you to realize was yours. Power, not the loud kind people fake online, but the internal kind that reshapes your posture, your decisions, your expectations. And, it's funny how that power doesn't come from winning. It comes from understanding. It comes from seeing everything clearly, finally, without the haze of manipulation or confusion clouding your senses. Your story doesn't sound chaotic when the lies are removed. Your reactions don't look irrational when the context is restored. Your pain doesn't look exaggerated when the evidence is undeniable. You're not rebuilding yourself. You're revealing yourself. And that revelation keeps unfolding, layer after layer, with this slow burn intensity that even you didn't anticipate. And you can almost feel that unfolding in real time, right? Like your mind is stretching, recalibrating, reconnecting pieces of yourself you didn't even realize had been disconnected. It's subtle at first, quiet little realizations hitting you in waves, but then it becomes this steady internal rumble, like your entire system is rebooting after years of running on corrupted data. See, your perspective is different now, not paranoid, not hardened, just awake. And, when you're awake, you start seeing how differently the world responds to you. People who used to talk over you pause a little longer when you speak. People who once dismissed your concerns watch your reactions like they're studying storm patterns. People who underestimated you track your silence like it's a warning sign. It's almost ironic. When you were doubting yourself, they felt comfortable. Now that you're grounded, they feel exposed. And there's this moment, you might have already felt it, when the weight of everything you tolerated finally hits you. Not in a dramatic breakdown kind of way, but in a damn, I was carrying all that kind of way. It's like noticing bruises long after the fight is over. But what's wild is how quickly that realization turns into strength. A different kind of strength than you've ever felt before. Less about force, more about clarity. Clarity is powerful. Clarity is dangerous. Clarity is the thing they never wanted you to have. Because clarity means you're not confused anymore. Clarity means you're not second-guessing. Clarity means you're not operating from fear or attachment or hope in the wrong places. I mean, look, once the truth hits the ground, there's no duct taping it back together. The mess is out. The illusion is gone. The masks are off. And you, standing in the middle of that wreckage, look more aligned than you've ever looked. You're not scrambling. You're understanding. You're not panicking. You're observing. That shift alone rewrites the entire power dynamic. Your emotional palette is different too. Situations that once triggered you barely scratch the surface now. Words that once wounded you don't even break skin. Faces that once controlled you feel small. like background characters in a story they thought they were leading. And, there's something beautiful about the way your inner voice has changed tone. It's not frantic anymore. It's not begging for validation. It's not searching for meaning in people who gave you none. Your voice feels centered, grounded, like it's finally speaking from a place that isn't trying to survive, just trying to be understood. Even your patience hits different, not because you're tolerating nonsense, but because you're choosing where your energy goes instead of leaking it everywhere like a broken faucet. Selective patience, strategic patience, the kind of patience powerful people have. And you start realizing you don't have to clap back. Your energy does it for you. You don't have to expose anyone. The truth already did that. You don't have to prove anything. The receipts did that months ago. You don't have to fight to be believed. People are finally catching up to where you've always been. There's this eerie calm that comes with that. Not numb, not detached, just this steady, cool awareness that feels almost Joker-esque in its confidence. Not chaotic, but razor sharp, like you could walk into any situation and say exactly one sentence that dismantles the entire room. Your composure is unsettling to people who once held power over your emotions. They don't know how to read you anymore. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know if you're done or if you're planning something bigger, all because you're simply standing in your truth instead of wrestling with theirs. Ladies, gentlemen, and every beautiful chaotic soul watching this, you're going to want to sit down for this, because this one right here, this is for you. Look at you. Look at you. Do you even realize what you just did? Do you understand the level of psychological chaos you unleashed the second you stepped outside today? Because, oh no, this wasn't just fashion. This wasn't just a fit. This wasn't some casual little, let me throw something on and see what happens moment. No, you walked out like a siren going off in human form. You walked out like a glitch in the system wearing sunglasses. You walked out like someone who woke up and said, greater than, yeah. Let's ruin their entire sense of stability today. And you know what? You succeeded. Perfectly, effortlessly, horrifically. The whole state didn't just notice. They malfunctioned. People's mental RAM got overloaded. Grown adults forgot where they were driving. Someone in aisle 3 of a grocery store had a spiritual awakening because they caught a glimpse of you in the reflection of a freezer door. That's what your presence does. But look, this isn't really about the clothes, is it? No, not even a little. See, people panic when they're confronted with someone who actually owns themselves. Someone who doesn't shrink. Someone who doesn't apologize for existing loudly. Someone who doesn't dim their fire just because other people can't handle the heat. And you, you've been dimming yourself for years, haven't you? Trying to be reasonable, trying to be palatable, trying to be normal enough not to disturb the peace. And yet the second you stop performing that little polite version of yourself, the second you step into your look, your energy, your truth, the whole state goes into crisis mode. You know what that means? It means all this time, the thing you thought was too much was actually power. Raw, unedited, unfiltered power. And, let me tell you something real. People don't melt down because you're too loud. They melt down because they're terrified of what you remind them of. You remind them of everything they locked away, everything they're too scared to be. everything they talk themselves out of whenever their courage knocks on the door. See, you walked out wearing confidence like a weapon, wearing self-respect like armor, wearing individuality like a warning label, and suddenly the world didn't know how to categorize you, didn't know what box to shove you into, didn't know what script to hand you. So what do? They panic, they gossip, they stare, they whisper like your existence is a plot twist they weren't ready for. But here's the delicious part. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't break a law. You didn't hurt anyone. You simply showed up as the version of yourself you've been hiding. And boom, statewide emergency. You know what that tells me? It tells me you've been underestimating yourself for far too long. It tells me you've been trying to play small while your energy was practically screaming, "We're not built for small rooms." It tells me the ceiling you thought you were hitting wasn't a ceiling at all. It was just the inside of the box you never belonged in. Look, I'm gonna say something that might sting a little, but you need to hear it. You've been acting like you're optional, when the truth is, you're disruptive by design, not in a destructive way, in a rearrange the room as soon as you walk in way, in a people start rethinking their life choices just by standing next to you way. And I know you feel that sometimes, that little internal tug, that whisper telling you you're meant for something bigger than the life you keep settling for. But then you second-guess yourself. You shrink back. You dial down your volume. Because someone, somewhere, told you to stop being too much. But today you reminded everyone why too much is exactly what this world needs. See, confidence like yours, it's contagious. It's terrifying, it's magnetic, it's disruptive, and most people, they're not ready for that kind of frequency, but you are. And, you know what, that's the whole point. The emergency wasn't the outfit. The emergency was the realization that you finally see yourself clearly. That's what scared them, that's what shook them, that's what sent the sirens wailing. You're not the warning. You're the awakening, and the world better start preparing. Because if this is what happens when you just get dressed, they are absolutely not ready for what happens when you stop apologizing altogether. Keep going, keep showing up, keep stepping out. If your existence causes a statewide emergency, good. Maybe it's time the world woke up. And the wild thing is, you felt it, didn't you? That little jolt in your chest when you realized people were reacting to you like you were breaking every unwritten rule of how they think someone should exist. And, there was this tiny part of you that almost wanted to apologize, right? That little leftover instinct from an older version of you whispering, maybe I should tone it down. But you didn't. You stayed in it. You held your ground. You walked anyway. See? That right there. That's the moment that scares people the most. Not the clothes, not the look, not the energy. It's the choice. The choice to not shrink. The choice to not hand your power over. The choice to not collapse just because someone else's insecurities start vibrating like a loose pipe. And, you know, it hits me sometimes how many people go their whole lives without ever making that choice, even once. They wake up every day folding themselves in half just to squeeze into the expectations someone else wrote for them. They don't even question it. They just comply. But you stepped out of your house today and accidentally started a psychological riot. You're operating on a frequency most people don't know how to tune into. A frequency that makes them wonder if they've been living on airplane mode while you're out here broadcasting in surround sound. And it hits them hard. Look, you ever notice how some people stare at you like they're trying to download a whole update just to understand you? Like they're buffering, like they're glitching because your authenticity doesn't compute with the character they built themselves into. That's because your presence exposes the gap between who they are and who they pretend to be. People don't panic because you're outrageous. They panic because you're honest, unfiltered, aligned with yourself in a way that feels dangerous. And I mean, let's be real, you didn't wake up trying to be some walking revolution. You were just trying to live, just trying to exist without making yourself smaller. But that's the trick, isn't it? People think confidence is this loud, flashy, in-your-face performance. But the kind of confidence that shook the whole state today, it's quieter, it's deeper, it's rooted in the part of you that finally said, I'm done asking for permission to be myself. And once you hit that point, everything shifts. Your posture changes, your tone changes, your presence starts carrying this weight, this gravity that pulls attention without even trying. I mean, honestly, you could have walked out in a paper bag and the air would have still snapped around you the way it did. The look just made it obvious. The look made it undeniable. The look made it visible to people who were never supposed to understand you in the first place. And, see, this is the part that gets me. While they're out there losing their minds, clutching their pearls, scrambling to stabilize their reality, you're finally catching up to yourself. You're finally seeing what you've been carrying all along. You're finally recognizing that the thing people react to isn't new. It's just newly unapologetic. There's this electricity in you, like a fuse that's been waiting years to be lit. And today someone struck the match without even knowing it. The reaction wasn't a coincidence, it was confirmation. And while everyone else is running around acting like you triggered some kind of fashion apocalypse, you're standing there realizing you've barely even started. You feel that, right? That simmering under your ribs, that awareness settling into your bones, that quiet little voice whispering that you're done living at half volume. It's not arrogance, it's awakening, and it's only getting louder. And the thing that keeps echoing in my head is how unaware you are of the aftershocks you create just by being in the room. Like you're standing there thinking you just showed up, and meanwhile people are reevaluating their entire understanding of themselves. It's wild, it's hilarious, it's kind of poetic, honestly. You know how some folks talk about main character energy, like it's a cute little aesthetic? Yeah, yours isn't an aesthetic. Yours is a structural hazard, a genuine threat to fragile egos and outdated identities. And, look, I don't think you realize how many people saw you today and had two simultaneous reactions. Damn, and why can't I be like that? Because what you did wasn't about fabric or color or styling. It was about stepping into a version of yourself that doesn't ask for permission anymore. A version that doesn't wait to be validated. A version that doesn't shrink just because someone else hasn't grown yet. And you know, there's something almost disruptive about a person who finally stops negotiating their worth. People don't know how to handle that shift. They start scrambling, internally, emotionally, existentially, because when you walk past them radiating that kind of self-ownership, it forces them to look at all the places where they abandoned themselves. It forces them to confront the parts they keep tucked away behind "I'm fine" and "maybe someday." You became a mirror they didn't ask to look into, a mirror that reflects their unmade decisions, their unspoken dreams, their buried confidence, and, you can almost feel it when it happens, right? That weird tension in the air, that mix of admiration and confusion and envy swirling around you like static electricity. It's not in your head. It's real. It's happening because you stopped pretending you're anything less than powerful. See, people spend years trying to craft a version of themselves that feels safe. But you, whether you meant to or not, stepped outside of that safety template. You walked in with a presence that said, "I'm not here to blend in." And even if you didn't say it out loud, your energy did, loudly, clearly, unapologetically. You know what's even funnier? Most of the people who melted down today aren't even mad at you. They're mad at the parts of themselves that knew they could have been bold too, but chose not to be. They're mad because you woke something up in them, something they don't know how to deal with. It's that internal tug of war, admiration fighting insecurity, inspiration wrestling with fear, curiosity battling ego, and somewhere in the middle of all that emotional chaos, you're just being you, not trying, not posing, not performing, just existing in a way that finally matches who you are on the inside. And it hits differently. It hits hard. It hits in a way that makes people rethink the rules they thought were carved in stone. You walked out, and suddenly those rules didn't feel so solid anymore. Suddenly the boundaries they cling to felt flimsy. Suddenly the excuses they rely on sounded hollow. All because you showed up without dimming your flame. You know, it's kind of incredible how one person's authenticity can unravel a whole society's standards without even trying. A single spark walking past a field of dry expectations, a shockwave disguised as a human being, and, every time someone tries to act like you're too much, it's really just their bandwidth crashing under the pressure of witnessing someone who refuses to live half alive. And the more I think about it, the clearer it gets that this wasn't some isolated moment. This wasn't a "wow, you looked good today" kind of thing. This was a shift, a rupture in the version of reality that people built around you. You ever notice how before today, people kind of expected you to stay within certain limits? Not because they hated you or anything, but because it made them comfortable, predictable, easy to categorize, easy to manage. Then you stepped out, physically, emotionally, energetically, and suddenly every box they tried to put you in just stopped fitting. And it's funny, you know, watching people try to recalibrate in real time. Like their brains are running that spinning loading icon because the old image of you doesn't match the new data coming in. It's this weird mix of fascination and panic, curiosity braided with intimidation. You walked past them and it was like you deleted their mental file named "Who You're Supposed to Be," just wiped it clean without warning. And change like that, it rattles people. It forces them to interact with the real you instead of the version they crafted in their heads. Look, it's wild how many people prefer the watered-down version of someone simply because the real version forces them to upgrade themselves. And you stepping out the way you did today, it wasn't just a fashion statement. It was a forced system update for everyone who crossed your path. And, I can feel you trying to play it off like it's not a big deal. Like you didn't notice the stares, the pauses, the double takes, The whispered "oh my God" moments trailing behind you. But you felt it. You absolutely felt it. That quiet hum under your skin. That inner alignment clicking into place. That sudden awareness that you weren't walking the same way you used to. It wasn't arrogance, it wasn't ego, it was clarity. This deep, grounded sense of, I'm not hiding anymore. And people respond to that with intensity because they're not used to seeing someone who isn't performing, someone who isn't editing themselves in real time, someone who isn't scared of being seen. I mean, you stepped out today and gave the world something rare. A human being unwilling to apologize for existing at full volume. That's the real emergency. Not your outfit, not your style, not your presence. It's the fact that you've stopped negotiating with your own potential. And the moment you do that, everything around you starts glitching. People's expectations collapse. Their projections fall apart. The version of you they thought they knew dissolves. Because your energy walked in like, this is me. Deal with it. And the wild part is, you weren't even trying to be powerful. It just leaked out of you. Naturally, effortlessly, dangerously. You breathed differently. You moved differently. You occupied space like you finally realized it belonged to you. And every person who crossed your path had to face the uncomfortable truth that maybe they've been living at 30% while you were out here stepping into 100 without warning. And that kind of realization, it shakes people. It rearranges them internally. It makes them question everything they've been settling for, just from watching you walk by. And what really hits me is how unprepared you were for the effect you had. Like you genuinely thought you were just stepping outside, just existing, just being you. And, it's almost funny how you're still trying to wrap your head around the fact that the world reacted louder than you expected. Like you're standing there going, was it really that serious? Meanwhile, the energy in the room shifted like a pressure wave. You know that moment when someone walks in and everyone senses something before they even look up. That was you. That's the field you carry. That's the gravitational pull people pretend they don't feel, but absolutely do. And look, it's not even about confidence in the cliché sense. Like, oh, you believe in yourself more today. No, this is deeper. This is you finally syncing up with a version of yourself that's been knocking for years. The moment you cracked that door open, everything else just aligned. You felt taller without standing taller. You felt louder without saying a single word. You felt present in a way that made everyone else suddenly aware of the ways they weren't. It's almost unsettling, isn't it? Realizing that your presence alone exposes the parts of other people they don't want to see. Not because you're judging them, but because your authenticity makes their masks feel heavier. People look at you and feel that tiny internal ache. The one that whispers, I could have been more if I hadn't talked myself out of it. And you didn't try to trigger that in them. You didn't walk out with the intention of sending anyone into an existential spiral. But that's what happens when you embody something they abandoned. You remind them of the road they didn't take. You remind them of the courage they sidelined. You remind them of the power they diluted just to blend in. And, the wildest part is, you're not even fully aware of what you're tapping into yet. You're still adjusting to it, still figuring it out, still surprised by the way people react when you show even a fraction of your unfiltered self. It's like watching someone discover they've been carrying fire their whole life, and only just realized it lights up the entire room. That kind of discovery shakes the ground under your own feet. But with you, it also shakes the ground under everyone else's. Look, people are used to reading each other easily, predicting energy, categorizing presence, putting labels on people before they've even spoken. You stepped out and broke that pattern. You walked in, and suddenly no one had the right file for you. No one knew which version of you to expect because you weren't following the script anymore. That unpredictability, yeah, that's the part that has everyone spiraling. And you can feel it in the air. That tiny pause people take before speaking to you. Like they're recalibrating, trying to make sure they don't say something stupid. You can feel how conversations tilt differently now. How people watch their words around you. How they get a little more aware, a little more awake, a little more insecure. Because your existence isn't passive anymore. It's catalytic. It transforms whatever it touches. And there's something magnetic about that. Something dangerous in the best possible way. Something that makes people realize they're no longer dealing with the version of you they comfortably underestimated. You walked out today and accidentally introduced them to the real you. And they weren't ready for that kind of honesty. They weren't ready for someone who didn't shrink to fit their perception. And they're still trying to process it, still trying to adjust, still trying to understand how a single person stepping into their full presence can destabilize the emotional landscape of everyone around them. And the more it unravels, the more it becomes obvious that half the people who reacted to you today weren't responding to what you wore at all. They were responding to what you revealed. Like you peeled back this layer they didn't even know existed, and suddenly they're staring at a version of you that doesn't match any of their outdated files. It's almost funny, you know? Watching someone's face do that micro-expression glitch when they see you, and their brain goes, wait, hold on, that's them? Like their whole internal script just got rewritten without warning. Look, people build these mental blueprints of who they think you are. They think you're predictable, familiar, manageable, and then you show up in a way that doesn't align with the character they wrote for you, and everything short-circuits. You can feel it. You can actually feel the energy shift, like someone unplugged the room and plugged it back in. And, here's the part that gets overlooked. You didn't just change your outfit, or your vibe, or your energy. You changed your access level. You're not operating on the same frequency you used to. You're not presenting the edited version of yourself they got comfortable with. You're stepping into the kind of presence that doesn't wait for permission slips. And when you do that, people sense it instantly. Before you speak, before you move, before you even lock eyes with anyone. Hey there, my beautifully chaotic audience. All of you who've ever been doubted, dismissed, underestimated, played like you were too slow to see the game happening right in front of your face. You, sitting there, holding the kind of truth that could turn an empire into confetti with one tap of your finger. And today, oh, today, you found out exactly how powerful that is, because they really tried that goofy shit. And your screenshot, your receipt, your evidence, your digital nuke, just embarrassed them in motherfucking 4K for the entire world to see. Now listen, let me talk to you for a second. See, people love to play with you like you're soft. Like your silence means you're clueless, like your patience means you're blind. But you've been watching the whole damn time, collecting data like it's Pokemon cards. You've been taking notes while they were taking advantage. You've been cataloging every fake smile, every backhanded comment, every little betrayal they swore you'd never notice. And then you pulled out the screenshot. Do you realize how iconic that is? Do you understand the absolute poetry of that moment? Because see, there's a special kind of power in staying quiet while someone builds their own coffin with their own behavior. And there's a special kind of beauty in letting them hammer that final nail themselves, only for you to post the receipts and let the truth echo louder than any lie they ever tried to tell. You didn't destroy them, you didn't sabotage them, they did the goofy shit. You just hit save. And look, let's be real here. People always think you're the threat when you finally say something, when you finally show your evidence, when you finally expose the facade. But nah, you were the calm one, the patient one, the one who gave them every opportunity to act right. They chose chaos, you chose proof. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise, that is strength. Because you've spent so much of your life being gaslit, manipulated, minimized, told you're overreacting, told you're doing too much. You've been made to feel insane for simply noticing patterns, for remembering details, for holding on to things that mattered because someone else pretended they didn't. But now the world sees what you saw. You know what that is: validation, closure, rebirth. And yeah, maybe it feels messy, maybe it feels heavy. Maybe part of you is shaking right now because you're not used to this level of power in your hands. But trust me, this wasn't revenge. This was self-defense. This was accountability. This was you finally stepping out of the shadows of your own self-doubt and saying, nah, you're not going to play with me like that. And look, I get it. You're used to holding everything in. You're used to swallowing your pain, brushing it off, letting things slide. You're used to people walking all over your softness because they mistake kindness for stupidity. But today, you reminded them that you're not soft, you're silent until necessary, you're observant until required, you're peaceful until someone tries to paint you as the villain in a story they wrote with their own stupidity. See, people love to perform innocence when the consequences show up at their doorstep. They love to cry. This is being blown out of proportion. After they spent weeks throwing matches at the gasoline, they love to pretend like they were misunderstood when they knew damn well what they were doing. But not this time. Not with you. Because your screenshot ended the debate. 100 excuses can crumble in front of one truth. 1,000 lies can dissolve in one image. A whole character can collapse from one timestamp. And you, my friend, you held the timestamp. You know, sometimes the universe taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, stop doubting yourself. And sometimes it doesn't whisper. Sometimes it hands you a moment like this. A moment where everything becomes clear, where you realize you weren't crazy, you weren't paranoid, you weren't making things up. You were right. And that feeling hits different. Because for once, the burden isn't on you to prove anything. The truth is standing there naked, screaming at full volume. And all you had to do was show what was already real. You know what else? This wasn't just about exposing someone else. This was about revealing you, your strength, your resilience, your unwillingness to be played like a fool one more damn time. People forget that you're not just someone who observes. You're someone who knows, someone who remembers, someone who, when pushed, will pull out the one piece of evidence that flips the entire storyline upside down. And you did that. Today, you did that. And maybe you're sitting there wondering what comes next. Maybe you're unsure if you went too far. Maybe you're questioning yourself because you're so used to apologizing for your reactions instead of holding people accountable for their actions. But hear me clearly. You didn't go too far. They went too far. You just finally matched the energy. You're not the villain for exposing the truth. You're the villain in their story because they never expected you to stop playing the victim in yours. Let me say that again. Slower, smoother, with a little extra bite. You stopped being the victim the moment you said, "Nah, here's what really happened." And that is why they're embarrassed. Not because you ruined anything, but because you revealed everything. They weren't ready for your backbone. They weren't ready for your intelligence. They weren't ready for your receipts. They weren't ready for you. And now the world is watching, not just them. You. Watching you rise. Watching you stand firm. Watching you stop letting people walk all over your boundaries like they were optional. Look, you didn't just embarrass someone in 4K. You reclaimed your power in 4K. You reminded the world that you're done being the quiet one, the pushed around one, the one who gets blamed for simply having a heart. You showed them that you can be kind, but not blind. You can be patient, but not passive. You can be forgiving, but not forgetful. You showed them who the FC you are. And deep down, you know this moment isn't the downfall of anyone. It's the awakening of you. Keep that energy. Hold that standard. And never again let anyone convince you that your truth is too much, simply because it reveals who they really are. And the wild part is, you can almost feel the shift happening in you, right? That little internal click, that quiet certainty in your chest that whispers, "Yeah, I'm not the one to play with anymore." And, it's kind of funny when you think about it, because the same people who laughed at you, the same ones who thought you were naive, clueless, slow, easy to manipulate, they're suddenly acting nervous as hell, skittish, jumping at shadows like they know a storm is coming, and you're the one holding the lightning, and you're sitting there like, oh, now you're scared. Now you want to act brand new. See, they weren't afraid when they were doing the goofy shit. They weren't afraid when they were running their mouth. They weren't afraid when they thought you'd never speak up, never show proof, never push back. The fear only arrived when they realized you weren't the character they wrote for you in that little fantasy script of theirs. That moment when they finally see you, like actually see you, it hits them like a freight train with no brakes, and you can almost sense that panic radiating off them, because nothing terrifies a liar more than someone who remembers the truth. Nothing shakes a manipulator more than someone who refuses to forget. Nothing rattles a hypocrite more than a person who has receipts, timestamps, digital fingerprints, and the spine to show them. You're dangerous to them, you know that. Not because you're ruthless, not because you're unhinged, but because you're aware. Awareness ruins every illusion they try to paint. And look, here's something people never tell you. Strength doesn't always come from shouting, or fighting, or throwing punches in some dramatic movie scene. Sometimes it comes from the quietest decision you ever make. Keeping the screenshot, holding on to the truth, waiting for the right moment, and choosing yourself when it finally arrives. You did that instinctively, like it was muscle memory, like your soul was tired of being stepped on and said, "Nah, we're not doing that again." And, it's wild how empowerment sneaks up on you. One second you're doubting yourself, questioning whether you're too sensitive, whether you misread the situation, whether you should just let things slide again. Then boom. One screenshot, one message, one contradiction. Everything lines up, and suddenly you're not confused anymore. You're not lost. You're not soft. You're awake. That's the thing people don't get. You weren't looking for revenge. You weren't out here waiting to embarrass anyone. You were just tired. Tired of being played. Tired of being lied to. Tired of watching people gamble with your trust, like it wasn't worth anything. A person can only take so much before a different version of them steps forward. Not the broken version, not the timid version. The version that says, "I'm done pretending I don't see what's right in front of me." And once that version of you shows up, oh, it changes everything. Suddenly your silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. Your patience isn't naivety, it's precision. Your kindness isn't vulnerability, it's choice. You move different, you feel different, you are different. Because that screenshot, they're never just a picture. It's a shift, a moment, a turning point. That image held truth, but it also held your evolution. Every pixel, every line, every piece of exposed hypocrisy was like a mirror showing you your own strength. And the more you looked at it, the more you realized how long you'd been downplaying yourself. How long you'd been shrinking to make room for people who wouldn't even give you the courtesy of honesty. And, isn't it strange how one exposure, one moment of clarity can peel something open inside you? Not bitterness, nah, you're past that. Not vengeance, you don't need that. Just this grounded certainty, this inner authority you didn't know you had. You carry yourself different when you know you're not delusional. Your back straightens, your voice steadies, your energy gets sharper. People around you can feel it, even if they don't understand it, even if they pretend not to, even if they whisper behind your back, wishing you'd go back to being the version of you that let them get away with shit. And I mean, look at you. You didn't crumble, you didn't fold, you didn't beg for validation or approval. You showed the truth, and you stood in it. And the world, watching from the outside, felt the impact, all because someone tried to play you like you were disposable, tried to run goofy shit like you wouldn't catch them, tried to pretend you were too oblivious to notice. They really thought you were that easy to manipulate. And now, you're the one holding the narrative. They're the ones scrambling to rewrite their excuses. You're the one people are looking at with newfound respect, or fear, which honestly works too. The price of underestimating you just skyrocketed. And the funny thing is, you can almost feel people recalibrating around you know? Like they're trying to update whatever outdated version of you they had saved in their heads, because they were expecting the quiet one, the sweet one, the "it's okay, I understand" one. Instead they got the "your lies just got eviscerated in front of a live audience" version of you. And that tends to rearrange a few dynamics real quick. And there's this shift, subtle but heavy, where people start choosing their words a little more carefully when they talk to you. You can hear it in the pauses, in the lowered voices, in the way they glance at their phones before saying something, like they're afraid of becoming the next screenshot. Which is hilarious because you're not out here collecting receipts like trophies. You're just done being disrespected with impunity. It's wild, right? You didn't change your personality. You didn't change your morals. You didn't change your kindness. You just stopped letting people perform innocence on your time. And that energy, that's loud without ever raising your voice. You ever notice how, once people realize you don't play dumb anymore, they suddenly start confessing things you never asked about? Like guilt starts leaking out of them in these awkward little stutters. That's because truth has weight, and when you carry it with confidence, guilty people feel it pressing on them even when you're not saying a damn thing. And you're moving differently too. Not in a paranoid way, not in a trust no one way. More like, you finally stepped into the version of yourself that doesn't apologize for seeing reality clearly. There's a steadiness in your chest, a kind of quiet fire, something alive, humming, like your intuition is finally getting the respect from you that it deserved this whole time. Because let's be honest, you knew. You always knew. You saw the weird vibe shifts, the inconsistencies, the little micro-betrayals people thought were invisible. You felt them, even when you couldn't articulate them. And when the screenshot hit, everything clicked into place with the force of a cosmic slap. It's empowering, but in that unnerving way too, where you're like, damn, I really wasn't crazy after all. That realization hits different, deep, sharp, almost emotional, and there's something kind of beautiful in the way you're learning to trust your own perception again. Like you're slowly undoing all the self-doubt that other people's manipulation planted in you. You're reclaiming your instincts, your clarity, your authority in your own narrative. You can feel it in the way you walk into a room. You're not shrinking anymore. You're not over-explaining anymore. You're not offering softness to people who weaponize it. There's a certain posture you have now, like a quiet, don't play with me aura that wraps around you without needing to be spoken. And the people who get it, they respect it immediately. The ones who don't, they feel threatened, even if you aren't doing a damn thing. It's funny how truth rearranges the whole ecosystem. And see, that's what really shakes people. Not the screenshot, not the exposure, not the embarrassment. It's the way you didn't fall apart afterward. The way you didn't backtrack or panic or second-guess yourself like you might have in the past. You stood there, steady, present, unmoved, and that quiet confidence. Yeah, that's what unsettles the ones who relied on your uncertainty. And honestly, there's something about this version of you that feels almost inevitable. Like you were always meant to step into this sharper, wiser, more self-assured form. Like life kept handing you lies and betrayals not to break you, but to sharpen your discernment into something damn near supernatural. It's a different kind of strength. Not loud, not chaotic, just real, lived in, earned. And the crazy part is, you're not even angry. You're just done being fooled. Done entertaining people who underestimate your intelligence. Done giving free passes to behavior that should have never been acceptable. You're in your, I see everything clearly and I'm not ignoring it anymore, era. And that scares the hell out of people who benefited from your confusion. You're not confused anymore. You're not lost. You're not guessing. You're aware. You're awake. You're aligned with yourself in a way that feels almost dangerous. In that gorgeous, powerful, Joker-esque sense of someone who has finally realized they hold the leverage. And there's this electricity around you, this unspoken shift, this vibe that says you'll never be played in the same way again. Not because you're guarded, but because you're finally respecting your own damn clarity. And there's this thing that happens once you step into that clarity. You start catching stuff instantly, almost instinctively, like your brain is running upgraded software, and you didn't even realize it downloaded. Little comments people make. You hear the intention behind them. Shady energy. You feel it before they even enter the room. Inconsistencies. You spot them like neon signs. It's like your whole perception sharpened overnight. And, that kind of intuition hits different when you finally trust it. And you can tell it unnerves people. There's this subtle shift, like they're talking to you while mentally tiptoeing, trying not to leave fingerprints on anything they say, because they can't lie to you the way they used to. They can't manipulate the narrative and expect you to just nod along. They can't hide behind the mask they were so comfortable wearing. You see straight through that shit now, and you don't even have to try. And look, it's not arrogance, it's not ego. It's the kind of awareness that comes from being burned enough times that your soul finally said, yeah, we're done touching the stove, just to make sure it's hot. And, the wildest part, you're not even confrontational about it. You don't need to be. You just sit there with your new baseline of honesty, and it exposes people without you lifting a finger. They unravel themselves. They panic in their own silence. They trip over excuses you never asked for. Your presence alone is the accountability they were hoping to avoid. And the difference in you is subtle, but impossible to miss. You laugh differently, lighter, cleaner, like you're not carrying their bullshit in your chest anymore. You breathe differently, deep, unbothered, like you finally have space inside you that used to be occupied by doubt. Your eyes changed. There's a steadiness in them people can't quite place. Like you've seen too much to ever go back to playing clueless. And it's kind of beautiful, honestly, because you didn't become cold. You didn't become bitter. You didn't turn into some stone-hearted version of yourself. You became discerning, selective, aligned. There's a difference. I mean, you can feel it in the way you respond to things now. Where you once would have spiraled, you pause. Where you once would have questioned yourself, you question them. Where you once would have internalized the blame, you step back and recognize the pattern. That's growth that doesn't get enough credit. And, there's this quiet confidence that started building in you, like a slow-burning fire, not explosive, not dramatic, just steady, constant, unshakable. People who once underestimated you don't know how to approach you anymore. And honestly, they shouldn't. They don't have access to the old version of you, the one they manipulated, guilt-tripped, gaslit, twisted around their finger. That version upgraded. And the new version, yeah, you're not someone who gets played twice. You catch things mid-sentence. You see intentions people think they're hiding. You sense the shift the moment the energy turns. You feel dishonesty like a bruise being pressed. Your sensitivity isn't a weakness. It's radar. It's detection. It's survival instinct wrapped in intuition. And isn't it interesting how the same qualities they mocked you for are the ones protecting you now? Your attention to detail, your empathy, your memory, your depth, your ability to connect dots nobody else was even looking at. Traits they dismissed as overthinking are the exact traits that kept you from being blindsided again.